morning, Sharon, and thank you for joining me to share your opinion and feedback on the mini budget. So this is kind of not our traditional session because we have only 15 minutes here. So I'm trying to ramp up in as much as possible. So first of all, which announcements from those you think will make the biggest impact on accountants in terms of their tax planning, advising businesses and support? Sorry.
No, not at all. Well, good morning, Eva. Nice to be with you again. For me, I think without doubt, it's the reversal of the NIC 1.25% percentage point increase with effect from 6th of November 2022. I mean, what I was going to say is really it's the consolidation of the package of measures that are going to impact on a lot of existing planning that's already been done. But that one is going to need unpicking pretty quickly in terms of getting the payroll software ready for November, if that's even possible. Loop back to that in a moment. But also when we combine it with the corporation tax rates changing from, well, they were due to change from next April, now they're not, and the income tax rates changing from next April, that whole piece, particularly with owner-managed businesses, as to how much remuneration to take, how much to put in a pension, and when, changes completely. So a lot of time and effort is going to need to be put into remuneration planning and also investment planning. And we'll perhaps touch on capital allowances in a moment.
Yeah. Okay, so we see big changes, as you said. So it is probably for the accountants, not only to be clued in, but probably trying to look out whether their software can support that as well. So maybe speak to your software provider, making sure
Absolutely.
it will be reflected, right? Because we only have a specific amount of time we can spend on it, right?
Yeah, very much so. I don't know if you saw on the it was the fact sheet, I think, on national insurance, right at the bottom, it does say that employers should be aware that their employees might not feel the benefit of the employee national insurance reduction. Might be November, it could be December, it could be January, because all employers are going to be in a different position with payroll capabilities. So while this big announcement's been made to say the rates are coming down again from 6th of November, it could be 2 months later before employees feel the benefit. And again, from a business owner point of view, the communication burden, the unpicking the confusion, it's sitting on them.
As someone who ran payroll department in the past, I think this will be a big job for them. One thing that caught my eye, and I've seen positive and negative kind of feedback, is IR35 repeal. So there's been obviously a lot of joy that, you know, this is kind of more getting back to the contractor themselves, but there is a kind of underlying fear or worry whether this repeal will be seen as somebody encourage them not to comply. At least that's the message I see. So what would
I think so. I think there's massive confusion out there now. People are referring to like an IR35 repeal, and I think the Chancellor did say something very similar. But of course, all the measures are doing is moving the compliance burden from the bigger businesses, the public sector or the medium or large size companies, back down to the smaller companies. So if I choose to operate not as an employee, but I set up Sharon Limited and I am providing my services to an employer through Sharon Limited, if that employer had been medium or large size or public sector, that was on them to take that compliance risk and to get the PAYE right. What the Chancellor has done is said that big business has got too much compliance. So while that was done very decisively by government a few years ago to make it easier for them to police, now they've unpicked it. They're not saying you can route employees through a company anymore. What they are saying is that compliance burden, the pressure to get it right, sits on all of those small businesses out there and their advisors. It hasn't gone. It's just the worry and the risk sits elsewhere. And of course, often it's not that small business that's choosing that structure. It's the big business saying, we will offer you this contract, but only if you operate through a limited company.
Yeah, that is
it's a huge
true.
risk.
Yeah, so it's a kind of you do have to know what you're doing. And as you write, many contractors I worked in the past, they have no choice. This is the setting. If they want to have the work, they just have to do whatever's necessary to get the work. So we touched on, you mentioned the capital allowances. So the few things that kind of caught my eye there in terms of the annual allowance and how that is going to change again in terms of the tax planning. But also I have seen there are some kind of regions where there will be more able to do more to take advantage of the tax reliefs. Can you tell us more?
Yes, I absolutely can. So short term, as we head to April 2023, businesses had been thinking about whether they're going to be investing in capital expenditure at all. And if they were they going to do it before or after 1st of April 2023, or in their current accounting period or the next one? And those decisions were made on changing corporation tax rates. So we were expecting to get more relief for capital expenditure in future. And those decisions were also based on the annual investment allowance dropping down to 200,000 and the super deduction of up to 130% coming to an end. Now, while the super deduction is still coming to an end, those other two components have changed. So for any business or any advisor that's worked with a business on plotting out when is the best time, taking all their commercial needs into account, of course, but when is the best time to incur their capital expenditure to optimize their tax relief, well, that now needs doing again. So that's the short-term point. Now, you're completely correct, Eva, that yes, the Chancellor's announced investment zones, conversations with 38 local authorities taking place. And within those investment zones, we are expecting breaks on business reliefs. We're expecting enhanced capital allowances. But the key words there are discussions and expecting. So we haven't got a start date. I think all advisors can do at the moment is watch this space. Certainly look at the list of the 38 local authorities in England at the moment where these discussions are taking place to see if any are local, but we can't plan for it at the moment because we just don't know what's going to happen and when.
Have enough detail. Yeah, that's something probably to watch out. So the other thing that I kind of picked up on, but to be honest, we don't know anymore. And, you know, I asked you last night. So it's the rounding up of the OTS and the HMRC and Treasury taking this role on in terms of, you know, developing the tax digitalization of tax and kind of streamlining, making it simplify the tax. Do you think, just your opinion, obviously, we can only speculate, is it going to affect the MTD the way we're heading, or?
I think what we can learn from Friday, I wouldn't have predicted what this Chancellor or this government was going to do. So it's very, very hard to guess, but I wouldn't link the two together. I think the driver for the government and for the Treasury for making tax digital, yes, they will use terminology around simplification and better for business, but what it often comes back to in any of their announcements is the reduction in the tax gap. There is that firm belief that if a business uses digital accounting records or digital systems to hold their accounting records, their calculation and payment of tax is going to be more accurate. So it's that closure of the tax cap that is driving it. I suppose what the reallocation of responsibilities, I suppose, from a separate independent office of tax simplification to bringing that drive, in theory, into HMRC and the Treasury might do is change some of the rules, because we haven't perhaps got that same degree of external oversight, which is pushing for simplification. So if in the future the Treasury think of something that they believe will increase tax take or further close the tax gap, we might see measures to implement that, whereas the OTS previously would have gone, well, that's going to be a chaotic, that isn't moving in the direction of tax simplification. So again, I think short term, we probably won't see much difference. I think we're actively moving towards making tax digital and should be. Long term, whether the, medium to long term, whether the same emphasis on tax simplification will really remain, well, that's yet to be seen. As you mentioned, we were having a bit of a text chat last night. And really what was occurring to me for making tax digital and digitalization is all of these, you bring me into these chats to talk about problems, don't you? Because that's where my brain goes. Problems around having to redo remuneration planning, problems with having to redo timing of capital investment expenditure planning. There's sort of a bit of a list. The IR35 changes, some employers might want to restructure how they acquire services. So there is so much for advisors to do. It remains an absolute no-brainer to get their clients digitalized, moving into a modern bookkeeping system if they're not already, to enable them to be providing the proactive advice that you and I both know, because we talk about it quite a lot, for that cloud bookkeeping does enable them to do.
Yeah, so I'm glad you kind of expressed your opinion on this, and you know, I do respect you hugely, and yeah, I do feel that this is kind of how we can be more agile as accountants, and I'm sure you're speaking to many accountants on a daily basis. So there will be always changes, right? There were like lots of changes we didn't expect announced on Friday, and then more of them will follow. And the only thing we can really do is to be agile, to be adaptable. And if you are still, I suppose, if you are still the old way accountant, what I call accountosaurus, as we know I called in the past, it's very difficult to react to those changes, right?
Yes.
So because I heard and I seen some messages there over the weekend scrolling where, you know, some people maybe hope, oh, this might be delaying MTD or whatever, but it should be the MTD itself shouldn't be in the forefront. Why are we going digital? Why we have to do it as a beating stick almost, right? Because to me, once you get on the digital journey, you becoming more kind of adaptable to change and what's coming ahead, right?
Yes.
So this will not go away, and let's hope they will not do anything silly as some, you know, delay in MTD, because yes, for some then it'll be excuse not to do it, right?
It would be, but I think our job and the job of advisors out there is to be having those conversations that sell the benefits of MTD outside of mandation. There's excellent business reasons, forgetting the tax gap, forgetting tax simplification, for business growth and business agility. It is the direction that we should be heading in. So it's our job to keep having those conversations to enable advisors to make that shift for their clients as simply as possible, and move the business environment and the professional environment forward.
Thank you. So yes, it's amazing how much you can pack in 15 minutes, if you know you have only 15 minutes. So the last
CPD done.
last thing from you, just really, what was the one thing that stood out for you from the budget?
Surprise, I think. I was really, really taken aback by the speed of it, the tone of it, and let's call it the bravery of it for now. These are big policies, a big change in direction, my view is it could go either way, and I think we watch the markets and we watch the government now with interest. Certainly if these policies do pay off, it's not going to be short term. I was talking to some people about it over the weekend. The income tax changes, for example, they're coming in next April. That isn't going to help anybody with their energy bills this winter. It's not. So there's a very short term risk, I would suggest, but this is definitely a new government, a new chancellor, and a new direction.
Perfect. Sharon, thank you so much for jumping in. It was a short notice, and I do want to discuss with you the changes as they will more unravel.
That would be great.
So hopefully, if I appreciate your input in the future on what you think. But thank you so much. Lovely to see you again, and I wishing you and to our audience a great and successful week.
Thank you, Eva.
Thank you, Sharon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.